What's up guys, Max here, bringing you an interesting video for Mortal Kombat X. Kind of a state of affairs with myself and the game, my relationship with Mortal Kombat X, if you want to call it that, and my personal feelings at the moment. I won't lie, over the last couple of months, it's been a very interesting situation of me playing matches online, mostly because MKX was kind of falling into the same boat that Ultimate Marvel 3 did, where playing the game online is ending up being a very frustrating situation. A lot of laggy matches, depending on when you actually started playing MKX. When the game first came out, there was a lot more people to actually enjoy the game, and the more people that were online, the more connections you had to connect against, and a better chance you had to get somebody with a good connection, because MKX shockingly can run well online when you run into somebody with a good connection. I've played several dudes on the East Coast, and I'm all the way on the West Coast, and it runs fine, and that's a pretty big distance to judge. Now, the problem is that when it comes to lag or anything else, we all know the woes of Mortal Kombat X netcode. It is not good. It doesn't do you any favors, and it's usually very stuttery and very laggy in terms of input delay. And input delay is essentially what ruins a fighting game online, and this is what was getting to me the most. I did not want to stop playing MKX. It has some characters that I find extremely fun to play, and the new balance adjustments that came out for the game over the past month or so, I actually really enjoy. I think they did a good job. Predator's still a great character, he's still very fun, he's been dramatically nerfed from what he was before, but I can't not play a fighting game that has the Predator in it, and it was very depressing every time I jumped online or we started streaming Mortal Kombat X. I'd become very salty very fast, because if there's one thing that gets me super upset about a fighting game, it's one that I want to enjoy, and it's not performing well online, and you're losing for reasons that are outside of your control. I personally have no issues losing to people that are better than me. It's very hard to complain about that kind of stuff, in my opinion, and I've talked about this before, and MKX is no exception. It's obvious when a guy is very good, landed all of his mix-ups, and you just got rocked. It's just one of those situations you have to take and learn. But if there's a huge amount of input delay associated with it, it can be very frustrating, and a lot of the times you end up blaming that for your loss, and that's the part that gets me really upset, is that I hate blaming something else for my loss and getting into that mindset. It's really upsetting to me. It's one of the most unfortunate things with online fighting games, especially since I've been dealing with it since the early 2000s. Now, I didn't want this to be the make or break for Mortal Kombat X. There was a couple other plans I had for the game to try to find better connections online between player matches and rooms and stuff like that. But I do agree with you, and I have read a lot of comments before that kind of state that the ranked match element of fighting games is very fun, and I agree with you, man. Ranked matches are the best and most enjoyable thing to watch with fighting games, because something random can happen every single time. You can get a new opponent, a new player, the same player, you can return to a salty match that you had a couple of matches ago. It's easily one of the most fun aspects of a fighting game, is that random element, and it actually simulates an arcade more than you would actually think. So I really liked ranked matches, and the problem was the biggest issue was in ranked matches, because MKX's matchmaking isn't very good. It does a bad job about associating you with people with lower ping, and it usually gets you people associated with this little ping bar that doesn't mean anything. I've played several people that have had 1 bar of ping on that little ping meter, and it ran great, and people that have 4 bars and it ran terrible. It actually means nothing. I highly recommend that if you guys are looking for matches in Mortal Kombat X, one of the best determining factors is this character selection screen. When you go into the game and you select your character after you hit OK at a ranked match or whatever, the amount of affected input delay that's going to be taking place on a match in Mortal Kombat X will actually show up within the character select screen, which is good, because this gives you a chance to evaluate, do I want to play this match or not? Is it stuttering around the character select screen? Is there a huge amount of delay between you pressing down or left or right around that select screen? If there is, there's a good chance you should just back out and not even play it. The problem is you might get a lot of matches that are like this with MKX, and this is the overbearing issue, is that you would get maybe 4 to 5 matches out of 10 that had a decent to good connection, and one that had a good connection might be like 1 or 2, while the rest of them were extremely delayed, very poor, or disconnect frequently. That's the problem with Mortal Kombat X. It essentially comes down to the matchmaking. And as I realized this, I was really depressed, because I like MKX. I think it's the best and most fun version of Mortal Kombat out of all of them, since we played the entire Legacy series just before MKX came out. So I didn't want to drop this game, because I know a lot of you guys like watching it, and I genuinely like playing Predator. I genuinely like playing these characters, but in the online environment, it was hurting me so much that it was about to become Ultimate Marvel 3 again, where it was just too painful for me to play. But There is hope and light at the end of the tunnel. I did something recently and had to remind myself that about a year ago I purchased this very specific router to actually ease some of the issues that happen in shooting games like Call of Duty and stuff like that when you're connecting to hosts. The biggest issue with those is that you need to connect to people that are close to you, and there was a router called the Net Duma that I bought quite a while ago for Call of Duty like Advanced Warfare, and I didn't end up using it at all because I dropped Advanced Warfare really freaking fast, so I never even really got a chance to use it. And then I was immediately reminded, you know what, this might actually be something that's pretty good for MKX, because the biggest issue with MKX is running into people with bad connections that have bad pings and people that are further away from you. Even though it's in the US, like the PlayStation 4 version keeps you in the same region, it didn't matter. People in the US tend to have bad connections anywhere. It can be next door to you and it can run terribly. So I figured I'd give it a shot, and I just want to say this is not a advertisement for the Net Duma router at all. This is just something I reminded that I had, and I got some pretty good results. What I essentially did was limited the amount of people that can actually play me, which you can do within the router, and I kind of kept it to around 1,000 miles, which is a good amount for a fighting game, especially one that doesn't have good netcode. At that point, I also limited the amount of people I could find by ping, which was around 50 ping or so. And even if you're West Coast to East Coast, you can get under 50 ping. If you both have good cable internet connections, that should absolutely be no problem. And shockingly, it worked really damn well. I didn't even really understand what was happening at first, and then as I was looking at the router and trying to figure out its settings and noticing that the people that it was pairing me up with were within that radius, and it was also associating that ping with it, the game was forcing me to get people that had good connections. The lagging connections kind of went out the window, but it wouldn't stop the eventual bad internet dude. Some people have really fluctuating internet where it's good for a second and then it's bad for others. Those were still there, and those were ended up being like 1 or 2 out of every 20 matches. And that is specifically because people have bad internet. No netcode is going to fix somebody's funky internet when it comes to a fighting game. You have to have a decent connection. So with that in mind, I was actually kind of shocked that the majority of connections I was getting were really good, but they were in the middle of the night. I also noticed that the opponents I were getting were much higher skilled, because generally, if somebody wants to be good at a fighting game, they'll make sure that their connection is good enough for them to play online, and I ended up getting paired with these people quite a bit, guys that had like thousands of wins, instead of the random guy that would come along and be 5 and 24. Those mostly went away. Like 1 of every 20 matches would be like a 5 or 24, and the other ones were people that had over like 500 wins, which is what I want. I want those people, and I want them to have a good connection, and I want to have a good connection against them. That's the whole point. That's what's fun about a fighting game. And these matches were absolutely fantastic. It essentially did a complete 180 than what I had before, where the majority of connections that I had at one point were pretty much totally bad, and all the bad connections got replaced with good connections, and now there were only some bad connections, which is what you want. It essentially turned into what felt like Street Fighter 4's netcode at that point, and that's pretty good. Street Fighter 4's netcode is bare bones, and MKX's netcode is like 2 grades below that. And shockingly, I realized that this would work really well for some other fighting games like Street Fighter 4. So I'm not going to do a full review of this router. I'm not going to actually show you guys the setup or the process. If you want to check it out, it's called the Net Duma, and all I did was just limit the amount of people that could find me by a certain ping amount, like 50 ping, meaning that they would connect to me only if they had a good connection, and it would force the game to matchmake me with those people. It worked brilliantly. I even opened it up later in the videos we're going to have this week, which is kind of like the revival of Mortal Kombat X for myself, because we can actually have fun with the game online now, where we opened it up all the way to the East Coast, but we kept the ping very low, meaning that if you did run into us on the East Coast, you had to have a good connection. You couldn't have some funky farm boy connection all the way over there, like several thousand miles away. And it still worked absolutely amazingly. It's kind of crazy. This does not fix the netcode for Mortal Kombat X. All it did was a workaround, and I can't tell you guys how happy I was these evenings playing the game. Between wins, between losses, I didn't win every single match. I was losing quite a bit as well, because whenever somebody got paired up against me that was really good, their connection was also fantastic. I got to ask those people, how was the connection on your end? And they would say, that was one of the best ones I've ever had. It's just because it's forcing us to find people that have good connections, instead of the matchmaking in MKX kind of doing absolutely nothing. Either way, guys, some very interesting results. I'm going to have a lot of matches coming up for MKX, as well as my friends Kenny and Steve. who I got to show this connection thing to, and they've been dealing with laggy Mortal Kombat games since Mortal Kombat Armageddon on the freaking PlayStation 2. I definitely wanted them to see this, and we have some pretty interesting results coming up in a full set of Mortal Kombat X online matches and some very interesting conversations where we discuss the game. Either way, dudes, thank you a ton for being patient with me. I know there hasn't been a lot of MKX footage on the channel and coverage, just because I've been kind of demotivated about playing the game because of how frustrating it was to play online. But now I have a newfound love for this game because, dude, we can actually have some fun playing online. Thank you guys a ton for being patient with me. I'll be back as soon as possible with more MKX videos, and I'm really looking forward to visiting some of those older characters that I specifically did not play because of the online conditions. Man, there are so many characters in the roster that are floating through my head right now, but either way, I appreciate it, guys. Stay tuned for those videos. My name is Max, and I'll see you next time.